we called this meeting mostly just for our information and to be informative.
Okay.
Basically what I'm looking for from you is kind of a history of this process.
Okay.
I know it's been long enough. I think there's probably people that have forgotten how we got here.
Sure.
And so I'm looking for a history of the process, including the opportunities for comment.
Okay.
And maybe especially some of those comments that have been included in the plan and the process to get us to this point, and also what this accomplishes. You know, what are we accomplishing with this process?
Okay.
And how we got here, and what do you perceive the timeline is going forward?
Okay.
As far as when we're coming before the commissioners.
Okay.
And then also, you know, at the end of that, probably more than you can accomplish. Look at doing this again, and is there a need for doing it again? And how often should we be looking at our regs for updates?
Okay.
So that's what I'm looking for. I don't know about the other commissioners. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. We actually started this in June of 2019. June 11th, to be exact. We started with a meeting in Ione, Cusick, and Newport. It was the community visioning meeting. There was mid-20s to 30 people at each of the three. We did 3 consecutive nights. Gretchen was the only one that went to all 3, but she didn't. And then from there, that was to kind of get the feel of what the community wanted to see, or the people wanted to see in the updates. And from there, we took it to the Planning Commission. We held meetings in July, August, October, November, and December of 19. Into 20, we went January and February, and then that's when we got hit with COVID. We didn't meet again until December of that year. We picked it back up in 21, and we had workshops in January, February, and April. That was just workshops. In total, considering that we broke the public hearing into 2, so I mean that was really only 1 meeting. We had 13 meetings for interaction with the public, as well as the written comment periods with all through the whole process as well. We began the first part of the public hearing was May 11th of 21, and at that time we even extended the comment period to the 28th of the month. And so in essence, there's been public comment was taken from June 11th of 19 all the way through May 28th of 22. So we had a pretty extensive, kind of put it in context, 1 public meeting is all we're required to have. But we had 13, and which I've had my counterparts, in various areas of the state were shocked that we actually did that many. But I think it was warranted. I think we needed to, given that comp plan was, 15 years old when we started and been sitting on the shelf. And so next steps. So when it comes to you, it would be similar to this. I mean, you may sit up there, but I'll give you a more in-depth breakdown of how we got here, what we've done, some of the changes that were made. I've already started in our share drive, sliding all of the comments we received for that whole time period. They're in there. We've got the recordings from the meetings. I mean, our development regulations say that I have to give you the complete record, right? So I've started putting all that stuff over there. There's easily going to be about 1,000 pages for you to peruse through. When you look at the development regulations, and the comp plan is going to be almost 500 in just those 2 documents alone. And then you have all of the comments. We have audio recordings of the Planning Commission meetings. I only put the 2 from the hearing in there, but I can absolutely slide the rest in there if you want to just listen to those. During the last portion of the public hearing, there was a comment letter received actually the day of the first public hearing, so it didn't make it to the planning commission because we got it too late to bring it forward to them from FutureWise. And so at the last meeting the other night, we brought those forward to work through those with the commission to get FutureWise's comments addressed as part of the plan. I don't know if you're familiar with them or not, but they typically adhere strictly to law. And so their comments were things like add a reference to this RCW and comments of that nature. And so that's what we did. We spent that first part of that before they went into deliberation, working through the comments that were introduced by FutureWise. There was a question about why wasn't that done sooner? Well, it wasn't done sooner because we weren't in front of the planning commission to do it. It's not my document, it's theirs and yours, right? It's the people's. And so that's why it was done at that time instead of done before. So we could physically work through that with them. In terms of when it might come to you, Friday, I'm hoping to have the final drafts of the comp plan and the development regulations. The development regulations will probably be done sooner, but it looks like Friday is going to be the, if we're lucky, we'll get I think we will for the comp plan, but I'm not 100% sure on that. That's our target, though. Then it'll come to you with a head sheet and a resolution that's 3 pages long right now. It's in draft form. It's been sent to our attorneys for their comment, and I sent it to Crystal as well for hers. And then we'll go through this. Your options, I guess, on that day will be to accept the Planning Commission's recommendation, reject their recommendation. You could certainly remand it back to staff and the Planning Commission if you feel like things are missing, or really it'll be however you feel it needs to be gone through. In terms of the future, the comp plan really needs to be, at the very least, examined annually for updates. And frankly, as long as I've been in this business, I can't think of a time when a year goes by where you wouldn't do something to update it, because you constantly run into these little unique situations, or maybe it's a repetitive one that just comes up and you're like, crap, we missed that, or whatever, we need to adjust that. And so it needs to be examined at least annually. And so we already have an annual update through Public Works with the transportation plan and a public facilities plan. Usually those are all incorporated into the same change. They're not done independently. They're usually all done together because it's all one hearing and so forth. So I guess since I brought that hearing up, you're not required to have one because the Planning Commission did. If you want to vary from what their recommendation was, like take something out that they wanted in or something of that nature, then you are required by law to have one.
Right.
Okay. You can have one if you want, but you do not have to. So typically we would open it up in June, and for private individuals that want to make a change. We gather any applications, and then we'll act on them should we choose to. I mean, if there's a criteria, they have to fit whether or not we act on them. If we choose to act on them, they won't get acted on until November, December, so that we can put it in with the transportation plan, the facilities plan. We're only allowed to alter the comprehensive plan once a year. You only change it once a year. And so we will be going for this. We'll be able to do it again in December, even with this one. I was informed by Commerce. Okay, because this was actually from 2020, right? And so this has been, So Commerce Growth Management Services told me we could still do it this year, even with this one being approved. So
that is how you envision this going moving forward. Opening the review in June kind of closing it out in November, December, using that time frame to build your changes and vet them in public meetings and all the rest.
Yeah, we usually close it in September,
Okay.
and then we have the rest of the fall to scoop everything together, do anything we want to do, and put it all in one.
Yeah.
So then it would come, we would get an application, decide if we, and one of the things is, can we fit it in our schedule, the planning department schedule? So we would bring it to you and say, yeah, we can fit it in our schedule. Do you want us to pursue it? You would say yay or nay, and if you said yay, then we would then move forward back through the process again. And it would be the same for anything that we recommended changes to. We bring it, of course, to you first, and then we go into the planning commission meetings and move forward. Same process.
What parts does the state require for updates? I mean, we're talking about, we're basically going to exceed their requirements for updates.
In terms of
How often are we required by the state to?
it's been 8 years. It was 8 years on this one. They're trying to stretch it out to a 10 years to coincide with the census.
Does that legislation go through?
Not that I know of yet.
Didn't go through last year. I know. Okay, it'll show up again this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
10 years later.
But if you do it annually, this is, your 8 year or 10 year update is nothing because you're already staying current with everything. And, now we're looking at this was in 05. So now it's 18 years old. And that's what's the pain. That's what made it so painful.
Yeah. Oh, no question.
Yeah.
What was the 5-year element they were looking at adding though? There was a check-in halfway through and I can't remember off the top of my head. It's not law yet, but they're.
Yeah. What was that for? I didn't think it affected us.
It's not yet, and it might not be us. We might have populated out of that one.
Yeah, and so
I'll look it up.
Okay, and then so this year we've had 3 weeks of legislature. Week 1 we had 24 proposals from the legislature with land use planning. Week 2 there were 50. This week there were 80.
Yeah.
So they're really hitting it hard. Who knows what it ends up looking like, but. A lot of it doesn't affect us. Yeah,
I know what it is. I'm looking
yeah,
at.
no, yeah,
That's great.
but it's very challenging. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I don't know. I think I got your
You
question.
wanted me a 5-minute answer. What does this do?
So in 2005, one of the things that they did was they implemented the public lands zone based on the ownership of a parcel.
Right.
And that's very poor to base zoning on ownership. And we saw it really hit us in 18 when we had applications from maybe private landowners apply because they had bought like an old gravel pit from the county. They want to build a home. It's forbidden on public land parcels.
Mm-hmm.
The vast majority of the public lands parcels went to natural resource designation because the county's 66%, just about 67%, owned by government entities, Forest Service, Department, Natural Resources, etc., or even the county itself. So we got rid of the public lands designation. So really, it's not going to necessarily take away any protections because now they're considered, the lands are long-term commercial significance. And so they still do have some pretty strict controls on them based on that fact. The natural resource designation is very difficult to remove from a parcel once it's on there.
And that was based on ownership at the time.
It was, and we had upwards of 30 parcels that had been sold by different government entities, the county, the school districts, PUD, that they sold them, and the people that bought them couldn't do anything with them. The majority of them bought them to build their homes on, and it wasn't allowed. So that's one of the things. A couple of the other things. We don't still today, because we haven't got through this, we don't have any commercial zoning. We don't have any industrial zoning. They're mandated in the Growth Management Act that we have those areas. And so ours, in essence, ours are all infill, right? It's the Diamond Lake area where most of it's already commercial, or the industrial sites that are already being used as industrial sites. There aren't any new areas. They either are or historically were industrial already. And so, and same goes with commercial, because we're somewhat limited. They're working on LAMIRD legislation as well. We're not allowed to create a LAMIRD now because we didn't back when we had adopted the original comp plan. So there is legislation working towards that, but it's not there yet. And so sub-area plans is our next option, which we're going to explore as well, finishing the one and looking at another one in Diamond Lake. Unless some legislative changes allow us to go backwards. I don't know. That's a hard nut to crack. Get them to go back.
For sure,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Robert, Don, you have any questions?
So between the close of public comment in May and now, have you still been, you still receive comments, surely, or I'll say, I receive, right. And so are those in the shared drive? Have you been putting those in?
Every comment.
So I want to know how far off I was from having the whole picture, because obviously for 2 years I've been reading those.
Oh, sure.
So sounds like we're pretty close then.
Yes, and so really, we just need to get the final drafts compiled, and they turned out to be such large documents that formatting it, or you know how it is with Office products, right? You put things together and it just blows up the formatting.
I'd say,
page numbers. I mean, the dumbest things. So one thing, one of the things I also proposed that will be coming with this, within our development regulations, we had the building regulations were part of them. And so one of the proposals in here is to make them standalone building regulations, mostly because they change so often from the state. The same is true with the floodplain ordinance, which we don't have one now. And we have to, FEMA says we have to, and so does ecology. And so we have one. We put it in our sensitive areas code, and we got notified by FEMA and ecology that we could do that if we want, but they suggest we do not, that we make that floodplain ordinance a standalone for the same reason, because FEMA regulations change frequently. And so in order to easily update that, so we set that out to be its own. And the last thing that I took out of there was the planning commission bylaws were built into the development regulations. And so I may have shared with you before, it says in their bylaws that they can alter their regulations by a majority vote, but they can't because they're in the development regulations. So they have to go through the whole process of updating the development regulations to do that. So I took them out, and they'll also be a standalone.
right.
You know, will all be covered in the resolution, of course, but that was a couple of things. It's just the housekeeping stuff, right? They should have been in there, but they got there. So.
And for purposes of fully informing myself, this roughly 1,000 pages of documents that you referenced, development regulations, comprehensive plan, is the rest of that, is all public comment going to be embedded in this sort of big packet?
They're all in there.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, so we'll have
you'll have it all. It's all, I have a shared drive that I share with Crystal to share with you. And it's all being put in there now, including the recordings of the public hearing. And again, I can go back and get you the recordings of the other planning commission meetings if you wish. It's just, you're going to hear the workshops, right? The public comments. And we had most all of them were at Cusick, I think. And we had numerous meetings, and it was awesome. We had a lot of involvement. The tribe was at most of them, and it was great. They had a lot of public participation in this. Great.
Would you be willing to guarantee that this document is perfect and we don't have to change it?
Yeah, for a couple days.
very short.
Yeah. You know, we already have a list, frankly. But you know, where it was in the process, we're not gonna make any.
So you kind of, when you talked about building codes, how have we been changing building codes over the years without changing the comp plan then?
Gonna take the fifth.
Okay. Yeah.
No, it was written into our codes. So the way they wrote them was that we were going to do this version of the building code, this version of the fire code, this version.
But refer to the newest.
And we did, that was our rules that we had to
Gotcha.
follow. And so what we're supposed to do is when the state adopts a new one, we adopt the new one, but our development regulations said we're bound to this one. And so the new regulations say we're going to adopt the most current version, right? And so we actually already have them. We purchased them in anticipation of getting this through at some point. And so we have the new one, so we'll be switching to the new one as soon as we get this. Yeah. They're not radically different, but things that are in there that are not on the current one are things like tiny homes. And we had someone in our office today that wants to do a tiny home community.
Get more of those.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. More of a manufactured home park.
They don't
Either
own Great Danes like me, Greg.
No, they don't.
Great Dane in a tiny home.
No, they fill it right up. I don't know if I see Dolly's on. I don't know if Nathan. I don't think he had anything to add. I talked to him this morning, but
Dolly, did you have anything to add to our conversation?
I don't. Obviously, if there's any legal questions or we can answer those separately.
Okay, thank you, Dolly. I just want to give you the opportunity.
Thanks.
Okay. Anything else, Greg?
no, I mean, it's kind of 3 years compressed into a few
You
minutes.
did a good job of summarizing that.
Thank you.
You know, like 8 minutes ahead of schedule.
There you go.
It's very good.
There you go.
So,
So all your, not all, but the majority of the information is in that shared drive if you want to get looking at it. And then hopefully by tomorrow we'll have the deck breaks, but whenever we get the final draft, we'll put them in there and put them on the website. Everything else has already been distributed to
And
them.
I know there's a good bit more than that in the shared drive. Is there any value in Robert going because obviously some of this was hung over from CPU 18 and a lot of the
Yes.
cases we're talking about way back when. Is there, I mean, if we had to book in.
Get some history, yeah, it probably wouldn't hurt. I want to say it's Stein Knapp is the name attached to the one that was approved for NPL that went to a residence. I want to say it was like 18002, and it is in your shared drive.
okay.
That, and then, so we had that one, and then we had one in Delkenna that were approved, and then RG New and the counties was denied. It's all in there if you want to look. The counties was at that time largely based on PL. So
I do want to look.
yeah, it's all in. It's already in the shared drive.
Great.
You are going to be a busy guy. You're gonna burn right through those.
I have more pairs.
You don't need them. So, anything else? I'll be happy to share whatever you need. If there's something.
Yeah, we're looking forward to your finished work. See,
Thank you. Yeah, we're getting. Let's see. So you guys are going north next week on Tuesday, right?
on Tuesday, yes.
So I would say the following week. I would think we should be there.
Okay,
I'll work with Crystal and Nathan.
sounds good.
We'll get a schedule.
So no commissioner action on the comp plan next week.
Yes, okay, so what it looks like.
We're looking at February 6th then as a potential meeting date.
That's Monday, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Or great if it worked out better for you, we can do that.
Excuse me.
February 7th.
Yeah, either or. I would hope by then that we have it. The only question that would alter any of that is that if they decided they wanted to have a public hearing, then you'd have to advertise.
Okay,
That would be the only real.
Sure.
but not next week. There's,
It's pretty iffy. Just yeah, that's a lot of stuff to compile, and I've been putting stuff in there for a couple of months, but a lot of it we couldn't act on until we got through the 17th because we didn't know what their final resolution was going to be here. So that's where we are today.
All right, well, thank you, Greg. We'll let you get back to it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Greg.
Well.